The bullet whistled past Sophia Hayes's ear as she ducked behind the overturned wagon, her heart pounding in her chest like a runaway locomotive. The year was 1876, and the Montana Territory was no place for a woman alone, especially not one being hunted. "They're coming back around," shouted the stagecoach driver, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. "Miss Hayes, you'd best make for those rocks yonder." Sophia gathered her torn skirts and ran, each step sending shock waves of pain through her injured leg. The stagecoach robbery had gone from bad to worse when the bandits recognized her as the key witness against their leader in the upcoming trial in Georgetown, Colorado. Now, they wouldn't rest until she was silenced permanently. She stumbled on the rocky terrain, falling hard as a second volley of gunfire erupted behind her. Pain exploded in her side, and she knew immediately she'd been hit. Warm blood spread across her blouse as darkness crowded the edges of her vision. The last thing she remembered was the thunder of approaching hoofbeats and a deep voice calling out, "Hold on there, miss. I've got you now." When Sophia awoke, she was lying in an unfamiliar bed, sunlight streaming through a cabin window. She tried to sit up, but gasped as searing pain tore through her side and left leg. "Whoa there," came a deep voice from across the room. "Best not be moving too quick." A tall man with broad shoulders and kind eyes the color of the Montana sky stepped into view. His face was weathered by sun and wind, with a strong jaw shadowed by stubble. He wore simple clothes, a faded blue shirt rolled up at the sleeves, revealing tanned, muscular forearms. "Who?" she began, her voice cracking from thirst. "Name's Wade Yancy," he said, bringing her a cup of water. "Found you being shot at by some unsavory characters a few miles back. Managed to scare them off and bring you here to my place." He helped her sit up slightly to drink. "Thank you," Sophia whispered after taking a sip. "I'm Sophia Hayes." "Pleased to meet you properly, Miss Hayes, though I wish it were under better circumstances." His smile was gentle, a sharp contrast to his rugged appearance. "Doc Simmons came by yesterday. You've been out for 2 days." Alarm shot through her. 2 days? I need to get to Georgetown." The trial. Sophia hesitated before deciding that this man who'd saved her life deserved the truth. "I'm traveling to Georgetown, Colorado, to testify against Rance Hollister. I witnessed him murder a banker in Virginia City." Recognition flashed in Wade's eyes. "Hollister's gang is notorious in these parts. Those men who attacked you, his men," she confirmed. "They recognized me when they robbed the stagecoach." Wade's expression hardened. "Well, they'll have to go through me to get to you again." He paused, his voice gentling. "But about Georgetown, there's something you should know." The hesitation in his voice sent a chill through her. "What is it?" "Doc Simmons said your injuries are severe. The bullet wound to your side will heal in time, but your leg—" Wade looked away. "The bullet shattered bone. Doc says you may never walk properly again. And the journey to Georgetown, it's nearly 400 miles. He doesn't think you should attempt it." Sophia felt as if the floor had dropped away beneath her. Never walk properly again, unable to travel to Georgetown. "But I must testify." "Justice depends on it." "I understand, but you don't understand." Tears welled in her eyes. "That man killed my friend. I promised his widow I would see justice done." Wade sat on the edge of the bed, his expression serious but kind. "Miss Hayes, I'm not saying give up. I'm just saying you need time to heal first. And if I never heal—" The doctor's verdict hung between them like a heavy curtain. Wade's eyes met hers, determined and steady. "I will help you mend," he said with quiet conviction. "Whatever it takes." Something in his tone, the absolute certainty, made Sophia believe him, even as the pain in her body told her otherwise. Over the next week, Sophia learned more about her rescuer. Wade Yancy had come west after the war, working cattle drives before settling on this small homestead at the edge of Montana Territory. He lived simply but comfortably, raising horses and doing occasional work as a guide for settlers and hunters. "You live here alone?" she asked one evening as he changed the dressing on her wounds. "Just me and the horses," he replied, his fingers gentle despite their strength. "And now you, at least for a while." The cabin was modest but well built, with 2 rooms, the main living area where Wade had given up his bed for her, and a small storage room where he now slept on a makeshift cot. The place was surprisingly neat for a bachelor's dwelling. As days turned into weeks, Sophia's frustration grew along with her strength. The wound in her side healed steadily, but her leg remained painfully weak. Any attempt to put weight on it sent sharp stabs of agony shooting up to her hip. "I need to stand," she insisted one morning in early June, nearly a month after the attack. Wade watched her skeptically. "Doc Simmons said—" "I know what the doctor said," she snapped, then immediately regretted her tone. "I'm sorry, but I can't lie here forever. The trial date approaches, and I've sent 3 telegrams to the marshal in Georgetown. He needs my testimony." Wade nodded slowly. "All right, but we do this my way." He fashioned a crude crutch from a forked branch, padding it with leather and cloth. Then he stood before her, arms outstretched. "I'll catch you if you fall," he promised. Sophia swung her legs over the edge of the bed, wincing at the familiar pain. Taking a deep breath, she gripped the makeshift crutch and Wade's offered arm, then pushed herself upright. Pain exploded through her damaged leg. She gasped, swaying dangerously, but Wade's strong hand steadied her. "Breathe through it," he encouraged. "That's it." For 5 agonizing minutes she stood trembling, leaning heavily against both Wade and the crutch. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but a sense of triumph bloomed in her chest. She was standing. "Well done, Miss Hayes," Wade said, admiration clear in his voice. "Sophia," she corrected him. "After all this, I think you should call me Sophia." His smile reached his eyes, crinkling the corners. "Sophia it is, then." That evening, as they shared a simple meal of rabbit stew, Wade broached a subject that had clearly been on his mind. "I've been thinking about Georgetown," he began cautiously. Sophia set down her spoon. "What about it? The trial is set for August 15th, correct?" When she nodded, he continued, "That gives us 6 weeks. If you're determined to go, I am. Then I'll take you there myself." He held up a hand to forestall her objection. "Not by stagecoach. That's too dangerous with Hollister's men about. We'll go by wagon, traveling at a pace your body can handle." Sophia stared at him. "You would do that? Leave your home, your horses, everything for me?" Wade met her gaze steadily. "I gave you my word that I would help you mend. Getting you safely to Georgetown is part of that promise." The emotion that welled up in Sophia's throat surprised her. This man owed her nothing, yet he offered everything. "Thank you," she managed, blinking back tears. "Don't thank me yet," he cautioned with a half-smile. "First, we need to get you strong enough for the journey." The next morning marked the beginning of what Wade called Sophia's training. Each day, she practiced standing a little longer, then taking a few halting steps with the crutch. Wade was always there, patient and encouraging, his strong hands ready to catch her when the pain became too much. "Tell me about your life before all this," he suggested one afternoon as they rested in the shade of a pine tree outside the cabin. These short excursions had become part of their daily routine. Sophia leaned back against the rough bark. "I was a schoolteacher in Virginia City. After my parents died of influenza 5 years ago, I had no family left. Teaching became my life." "You must be good with children," she smiled. "I love them. Their curiosity, their honesty, even the troublemakers have their charms. Will you go back to teaching? After the trial?" The question gave her pause. She hadn't thought much beyond Georgetown. I'm not sure. The school board may not want a teacher who limps. Their loss if they are that foolish, Wade said with unexpected vehemence. Sophia studied him, this man who'd become her protector and friend. At 32, Wade Yancy had the confidence of someone who knew his place in the world. His hands were calloused from hard work, but they touched her with surprising gentleness during her daily exercises. "What about you?" she asked. "Have you always lived alone?" A shadow passed over his face. "No, I was married once back in Missouri. Her name was Emily." He paused, and Sophia sensed old pain in the silence. "She died in childbirth along with our son. That was 6 years ago. I came west afterward, needed the distance." Instinctively, Sophia reached for his hand. "I'm sorry." He didn't pull away. Life happens as it will. We endure. But there was more than mere endurance in the way he'd built his life here, in the care he took with his horses, in the solid walls of his cabin. Wade Yancy hadn't just survived. He'd created something good from his grief. As July unfolded under the vast Montana sky, Sophia's progress continued. The crude crutch was replaced by a proper walking stick that Wade carved himself, decorating the handle with intricate patterns of leaves and vines. "It's beautiful," she exclaimed when he presented it to her. "Beautiful things can be strong too," he replied, watching as she traced the delicate carvings with her finger. Each day, they would walk a little farther from the cabin, first to the corral, where Wade's horses nickered in greeting, then to the small creek that provided water, and eventually to the edge of the meadow where wildflowers painted the grass in vibrant colors. It was during one of these walks that they encountered trouble. They had ventured farther than usual, Sophia determined to build her stamina for the upcoming journey. The pain in her leg was a constant companion, but she'd learned to manage it, gritting her teeth and pushing forward. "We should turn back," Wade suggested, noting the tight lines around her mouth that spoke of increasing discomfort. "Just a little farther," she insisted. "I need to know what I can endure." He looked like he wanted to argue but nodded instead. "Stubborn woman," he muttered, but there was admiration in his voice. They had just crested a small rise when Wade suddenly stiffened, his hand moving to the revolver at his hip. "Get down," he whispered urgently. Sophia followed his gaze and saw them 3 riders approaching from the west, moving with purpose. Even at a distance, she recognized the lead rider's distinctive red bandana. "Hollister's men," she whispered, fear crawling up her spine. "How did they find us?" "Been asking around, most likely." Small communities talk. Wade gently pulled her down behind a cluster of boulders. "Stay here. Don't move unless I tell you to." Wade don't, but he was already moving, circling around to approach the riders from another angle. Sophia clutched her walking stick, heart pounding as she watched the men draw closer. Had they seen her? Were there more of them elsewhere? The crack of a rifle shot made her flinch. One of the riders yelled in pain, clutching his arm. Wade's voice rang out from a stand of trees to her left. "That's far enough. Next shot goes through your head," the wounded rider cursed viciously. "We know she's here, Yancy. The woman's worth $500 to us." "She's worth nothing dead, which is what you'll be if you don't turn around right now," Wade called back. The standoff stretched for a tense moment. Then the lead rider spat and gestured to his companions. "This ain't over, Yancy. Hollister wants that woman silenced." "Tell Hollister he can come for her himself if he's man enough," Wade replied coolly. The riders wheeled their horses and galloped away, but the wounded one turned in his saddle to shout back. "We'll be watching the trails to Colorado. You won't get her to Georgetown alive." Once they were out of sight, Wade hurried to Sophia's side. His face was grim as he helped her to her feet. "We need to move," he said. "They'll be back with more men." The return to the cabin was agonizing for Sophia. By the time they arrived, her leg throbbed mercilessly, and she could barely stand even with Wade's support. "What now?" she asked as he helped her inside, her voice tight with pain. Wade's expression was resolute. "We leave tonight. They won't expect us to travel in the dark. But the wagon, no wagon. It's too slow, too visible. We'll go by horseback." Fear clutched at Sophia's heart. "Wade, I can't ride. My leg, you'll ride with me," he said firmly. "I've got a strong mare who can carry us both. We'll travel at night, rest during the day in places where we can defend ourselves if necessary." As dusk fell, Wade prepared for their journey. He packed only essentials: food, water, ammunition, a few medical supplies, and blankets. Sophia watched him move with efficient purpose, her own anxiety mounting. "I'm slowing you down," she said finally. "You should go for help, bring back a marshal." Wade paused in his preparations, fixing her with a steady gaze. "I'm not leaving you alone. We do this together." There was something in his expression that stilled her protest's determination, certainly, but something more personal, something that made her heart beat faster for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. By full dark, they were ready. Wade helped Sophia mount his best horse, a strong bay mare named Sadie, then swung up behind her. His arms encircled her as he took the reins, his body warm and solid against her back. "Lean against me if you need to," he murmured close to her ear. "Don't fight the pain. Work with it." They set off under a canopy of stars, Wade guiding the horse on a route that avoided the main trails. Sophia's leg protested every movement, but she found that if she relaxed into Wade's strength behind her, the pain became marginally more bearable. They rode through the night, stopping only briefly to rest the horse and for Sophia to stretch her injured leg. By dawn, they had covered nearly 20 miles, putting good distance between themselves and Wade's cabin. "There's an old line shack about 2 miles ahead," Wade told her as the eastern sky lightened. "Used to belong to the Circle M Ranch before they sold out. We can rest there today." The abandoned line shack was little more than a one-room shelter with a leaky roof, but it offered concealment and a place to lie down. Wade tended to Sadie first, then helped Sophia inside. "Let me check your leg," he said, concern evident in his voice. Sophia's petticoats were stained with fresh blood where her wound had reopened during the ride. Wade cleaned it carefully, his touch gentle despite his obvious worry. "It's not too bad," he reassured her, though his furrowed brow told a different story. "Rest now. I'll keep watch." Exhaustion overtook Sophia quickly, and she drifted off to sleep with the comforting knowledge that Wade was near. When she woke, the sun was high in the sky, and Wade was dozing with his back against the wall, his rifle across his knees. He stirred immediately when she moved. "How's the pain?" "Manageable," she lied, not wanting to add to his worries. His skeptical look told her he wasn't fooled. "We've got a long journey ahead, about 3 weeks at this pace, assuming we don't run into more trouble." "Will they follow us?" "Count on it. $500 is a lot of money." He offered her some jerky and hardtack from his provisions. "But we've got a head start, and they won't expect us to travel like this." As they ate their simple meal, Sophia studied Wade's profile in the dusty light filtering through the shack's single window. The past month had changed something between them. He was no longer just her rescuer, but something more: a friend, a partner, perhaps even. She pushed the thought away. This was not the time for such reflections. "Tell me about Georgetown," she said instead. "Have you been there?" Wade nodded. "Twice. It's a mining town, bigger than you might expect. Silver mostly. Good people for the most part, though like any mining town, it has its share of rough elements. And the territorial court, solid reputation. Judge Wallace is known for being fair but hard on criminals." If we get you there to testify, Hollister will hang, if. The word hung between them. For the next 2 weeks they traveled by night and hid during daylight. The journey was brutal on Sophia's healing body. Despite Wade's care, her leg wound festered, bringing fever that left her shaking and disoriented. During the worst night, when rain poured from the sky and they sheltered in a shallow cave, she clung to Wade and wept with pain. "I can't do this," she sobbed. "It hurts too much." Wade held her close, his usual stoicism giving way to tender concern. "You can, Sophia. You're the strongest person I've ever met. Not strong enough." "Then borrow my strength," he whispered, pressing his lips to her forehead in what might have been a kiss or simply a check for fever. "I've got enough for both of us." By morning, her fever had broken, and with it came a new clarity. Wade Yancy had become essential to her in ways that went far beyond his role as protector. The realization both frightened and exhilarated her. They crossed into Wyoming territory 3 days later, the landscape changing subtly around them. Here, the terrain offered less cover, making their night travels more dangerous. "We need to find a town," Wade decided after examining Sophia's leg one evening. "That wound needs proper tending and we need supplies." "Is it safe?" "No," he admitted, "but necessary. There's a place called Buffalo Springs about 10 miles south, small enough that word might not have reached them yet about Hollister's bounty." Buffalo Springs proved to be little more than a cluster of buildings serving the surrounding ranches, a general store, a saloon, a livery stable, and a small boarding house. Wade secured a room at the boarding house under false names, claiming they were a married couple traveling to visit family in Denver. The elderly woman who ran the establishment looked skeptical, but didn't question their story. "Doctor comes through town every other Tuesday," she informed them. "You're in luck, he's due tomorrow." Alone in the small room with its single bed, an awkwardness fell between them that hadn't existed during their nights on the trail. "I'll sleep on the floor," Wade offered immediately. "Don't be ridiculous," Sophia replied. "After 2 weeks of sleeping on hard ground, we both deserve a proper rest. The bed is big enough." Wade hesitated, then nodded. They lay down fully clothed, a respectful space between them that somehow felt wider than all the miles they'd traveled together. In the morning, Wade went to purchase supplies while Sophia rested. He returned with new clothes for both of them, food, ammunition, and most precious laudanum for her pain. "The storekeeper says the doctor is reliable," he told her. "A Dr. Hoffman served as an army surgeon during the war." When Dr. Hoffman arrived that afternoon, his examination of Sophia's leg was thorough and professional. He was a portly man with kind eyes and a German accent. "The bone is healing," he pronounced, "but not correctly. It was never properly set." He looked at Wade. "Your wife will always walk with difficulty. The limp will be permanent." Though they had presented themselves as married, hearing the doctor refer to her as Wade's wife sent an unexpected warmth through Sophia. "But she will walk," Wade pressed. "Yeah, with time and care. But never without pain, I'm afraid." Dr. Hoffman prepared a poultice for the wound. "This will draw out the infection, change it twice daily, and limited riding for at least 2 weeks. After the doctor left, Sophia sat in numb silence. The verdict was the same as Dr. Simmons is back in Montana. She would never fully heal. 2 weeks, she finally said. "The trial is in 12 days. Wade sat beside her on the bed. "We'll make it. We'll rest here for 2 days, then continue. Slower, perhaps, but we'll get there. And if we're too late." "If Hollister goes free because I couldn't testify," Wade took her hand, his calloused fingers entwining with hers. "Then we'll find another way to bring him to justice. But don't give up before we've even tried." His unwavering faith in her renewed Sophia's determination. She squeezed his hand. 2 days, then. Those 2 days in Buffalo Springs became a strange respite in their desperate journey. They ate proper meals, slept in a real bed, and for brief moments, almost forgot they were being hunted. On their second evening, Wade returned from the general store with an unexpected purchase, a simple blue dress for Sophia. I thought, "Well, your clothes are practically in tatters," he explained, suddenly awkward. "And the storekeeper's wife helped me choose the size." Sophia ran her fingers over the fabric, touched beyond words. It had been so long since she'd worn anything but her battered traveling clothes. "Thank you," she whispered. "It's beautiful." That night, wearing her new dress and with her hair freshly washed, Sophia felt almost normal again. They shared a quiet supper in their room, and afterward, Wade produced a small flask of whiskey. "Medicinal purposes," he said with a rare grin. The whiskey warmed Sophia's throat and loosened something in her chest that had been tightly coiled for weeks. Sitting across from Wade in the lantern light, she found herself studying the lines of his face, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the strong curve of his jaw. "Why are you doing all this for me?" she asked suddenly. Wade looked startled by the question. "What do you mean?" "You've risked your life, left your home, spent weeks helping a woman you barely know." "Why?" He was silent for a long moment, his eyes holding hers. "At first it was simple enough. You needed help and I could provide it, but now—" "Now?" she prompted when he didn't continue. Wade set down his tin cup. "Now I can't imagine not seeing this through with you, not because of some obligation, but because—" He paused, searching for words. "Because somewhere along the way, your fight became my fight, your pain my pain." The intensity in his gaze made Sophia's heart race. Without thinking, she reached across the small table and touched his face, her fingers tracing the line of his cheek. Wade caught her hand and pressed it against his lips in a gesture so tender it brought tears to her eyes. "Sophia," he whispered, her name a prayer on his lips. What might have happened next remained a mystery, for at that moment a commotion erupted downstairs, loud voices, heavy footsteps, the unmistakable sound of men searching for something. Or someone. Wade was on his feet instantly, extinguishing the lantern. "Get your things," he whispered. "Quickly." Heart pounding, Sophia gathered their few possessions while Wade peered cautiously out the window. "Back door?" she asked softly. He nodded. "There's a ladder down to the alley. I scouted it earlier, just in case." They slipped out of the room and down the darkened hallway to the back stairs. Behind them, someone pounded on their room door. "Yancy, we know you're in there. Come out and maybe we won't kill the woman." Wade's hand tightened on Sophia's arm as he guided her down the back stairs. They emerged into the cool night air just as the sound of splintering wood echoed from above. "This way," Wade murmured, leading her toward the livery stable where Sadie was kept. They had nearly reached it when a figure stepped from the shadows, pistol raised. "That's far enough," drawled a familiar voice. "The man with the red bandana." Wade shoved Sophia behind him, his own gun appearing in his hand with startling speed. 2 shots cracked almost simultaneously. The man in the bandana crumpled to the ground, but Wade staggered, a dark stain spreading across his shoulder. "Wade," Sophia gasped. "I'm all right," he grunted, though his face was pale in the moonlight. "Keep moving." They retrieved Sadie from the livery, leaving payment on a barrel, and rode hard out of town. It wasn't until they were miles away that Wade finally allowed them to stop so Sophia could examine his wound. "It went clean through," she said, relief evident in her voice as she bandaged his shoulder with strips torn from her petticoat. "But you've lost blood." "We'll find a place to hole up tomorrow," he said. "For now, we need distance." They rode through the night, Wade growing increasingly silent as they traveled. By dawn, he was swaying in the saddle, his face gray with pain. "Wade, we need to stop," Sophia insisted. "You can't go on like this." He nodded weakly, pointing to a cluster of rocks in the distance. "There." Defensible position. The small outcropping provided minimal shelter, but it was better than nothing. Sophia helped Wade dismount, alarmed at how heavily he leaned on her despite her own disability. "Your turn to be the patient," she said, easing him down against a rock. She retrieved the medical supplies from their packs and set about cleaning his wound properly. Wade watched her through pain-glazed eyes. "You'd have made a good nurse." "I'm a better teacher," she replied, trying to keep her tone light despite her worry. His skin was hot to the touch, fever already setting in. For 3 days, they remained in that rocky shelter while Wade fought infection and fever. Sophia tended him as best she could, using the skills she'd learned from watching him care for her. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. "Seems we take turns saving each other," Wade murmured during a lucid moment. Sophia smoothed his hair back from his forehead. "That's what partners do." His eyes, bright with fever, searched hers. "Is that what we are, partners?" "For now," she answered softly. "Though I'm beginning to hope for more." A smile touched his lips before he drifted back to sleep. By the 4th day, Wade's fever broke, and his strength began to return. But precious time had been lost. The trial was now just 5 days away, and they still had over 100 miles to travel. "We won't make it in time," Sophia acknowledged as they prepared to continue their journey. "Not with both of us injured." Wade's determination hadn't wavered. "We'll make it. We just need to adapt our plan." Their new plan involved risk traveling on main roads during daylight hours to make better time. They would pose as a married couple, hoping that Hollister's men were still searching for a lone man and woman traveling by night on back trails. The gamble paid off. They encountered other travelers on the road, freight wagons, families in covered wagons, lone riders, but no one who showed undue interest in them. Wade's arm was healing well, and Sophia found that with regular stops to rest, her leg pain remained manageable. They crossed into Colorado territory with 2 days remaining until the trial. Georgetown was now less than 60 miles away. "We'll make it," Wade said that night as they camped beside a clear mountain stream, "though it will be close." Sophia nodded, looking up at the starry sky. "I never properly thanked you for everything." Wade sat beside her close enough that their shoulders touched. "You don't need to thank me." "I do. You've given up so much: your home, your safety. You've been shot, hunted, forced to sleep rough for weeks." She turned to face him. "Why, Wade?" The truth this time. In the firelight, his eyes were impossibly blue. "Because somewhere between Montana and here, I fell in love with you. Your courage, your determination, your heart, all of it." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. She'd known, perhaps on some level, had felt it growing between them, but to hear him say it. "I love you too," she whispered. "I think I have since you said you'd help me mend." Wade reached for her then, drawing her gently into his arms. His kiss was tender, careful of her lingering injuries, but filled with a passion that left her breathless. "When this is over," he murmured against her lips, "when Hollister is behind bars, what then?" Sophia hadn't allowed herself to think beyond the trial. Now, in Wade's arms, the future suddenly seemed full of possibilities. "I don't know," she admitted. "I can't go back to Virginia City and your home in Montana." "Isn't a home without you in it," he finished. "We could build something new together, maybe right here in Colorado." The idea took root in Sophia's heart. "I'd like that." Their kiss this time was a promise, sealed under the vast Colorado sky. The final miles to Georgetown were tense with anticipation. They arrived late on the evening before the trial, exhausted but triumphant. The town bustled with activity, mining operations in full swing, saloons doing brisk business, the hotel filled with visitors for the trial. Territorial Marshal Everett Williams was stunned when they presented themselves at his office. "Miss Hayes, we'd given you up for dead." He pumped her hand vigorously, then turned to Wade. "And you must be the man mentioned in her telegrams." "Yancy, wasn't it?" "Wade Yancy," he confirmed. "You've done a service to justice getting her here, Mr. Yancy. Hollister's lawyer has been strutting around town claiming we have no case without Miss Hayes's testimony." "Is he in custody?" Sophia asked. "Hollister," Marshal Williams nodded. "Locked up tight with 4 deputies guarding him. His gang's been causing trouble, though. Trying to intimidate witnesses, jurors. They won't stop until the trial's over," Wade said grimly. "Which is why you two will stay right here tonight where I can keep an eye on you." The marshal gestured to a small room off his office. "It's not fancy, but it's safe." That night, despite their proximity to safety, Wade insisted on taking turns keeping watch. When Sophia protested, he simply said, "We've come too far to let our guard down now." The courthouse was packed the following morning. Sophia felt the weight of dozens of eyes upon her as she limped to the witness stand, leaning heavily on her carved walking stick. Wade sat in the front row, his supportive presence giving her strength. Rance Hollister glared at her from the defendant's table, his handsome face twisted with hatred. Beside him, his lawyer, a slick-looking man from Denver, whispered urgently in his ear. Sophia's testimony was clear and unwavering. She described in detail how she had witnessed Hollister shoot down the banker in cold blood after a dispute over a loan. The defense attorney tried to discredit her, suggesting her injuries had affected her memory, but Sophia stood firm. Mr. Hollister looked directly at Mr. Perkins and said, "No man denies me and lives," before shooting him in the chest, she stated. "I will remember his face and those words until the day I die." The jury deliberated for less than an hour. The verdict guilty on all counts. Judge Wallace sentenced Hollister to hang in 1 week's time. As the courtroom emptied, Marshal Williams approached Sophia and Wade. "You should know that several of Hollister's men are still in town. I'd advise staying close until the execution." Wade nodded grimly. "We'll be careful." They took a room at Georgetown's finest hotel, courtesy of the grateful territorial government. After weeks on the trail, the luxury of a proper bath and clean sheets seemed almost unreal. That evening, as they shared a proper meal in the hotel dining room, Wade reached across the table for Sophia's hand. "It's over," he said softly. "You did it." Sophia smiled, feeling truly at peace for the first time in months. "We did it. I never would have made it without you. So what now, Miss Hayes?" His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Ready to start thinking about that future we discussed?" "I am, Mr. Yancy. Though I should warn you, the doctor was quite clear I'll never be completely healed. The limp will always be there." Wade's eyes were serious as they held hers. "Do you know what I see when I look at you, Sophia? Not a woman who limps, but a woman who refused to give up even when told she could never heal. A woman who rode 400 miles through hell to see justice done. A woman I want to spend the rest of my life with." Tears blurred Sophia's vision. "Are you proposing to me, Wade Yancy?" "I believe I am." His smile was tender. "Marry me, Sophia. Let me help you mend not just your body but your life, and let me give you my heart to mend in return." "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. They were married 2 weeks later in Georgetown's small church. Marshal Williams gave away the bride, and the town turned out to celebrate the woman whose testimony had brought a notorious criminal to justice. Wade sold his Montana property through a telegram exchange with a neighbor. With the proceeds, he purchased a small ranch outside Georgetown where the high mountain air eased Sophia's pain on most days. By the following spring, Sophia had secured a position teaching at Georgetown's growing school. Her students quickly adapted to their teacher's slow, careful walk, and many of them became fiercely protective of her. Mrs. Perkins wrote from Virginia City. Sophia told Wade one evening as they sat on the porch of their ranch house, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. She says knowing Hollister faced justice has finally allowed her to move forward. Wade wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Like you have. She leaned against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. I never thought I could be this happy, not after the doctor told me I would never heal. Some kinds of healing aren't visible, Wade said, his hand moving to rest on the gentle swell of her belly where their first child grew. But they're the most important kind. Sophia covered his hand with hers. Do you remember what you said to me that first week when I was in such despair? I will help you mend, he quoted softly. You kept your promise. She turned to kiss him, pouring all her love into the gesture. You helped me find a way to be whole again, even with my scars. Wade held her close as the last light faded from the sky. We mended each other, Sophia. And we'll keep doing so every day for the rest of our lives. 2 years later, on a bright summer day, Sophia stood in front of their ranch house, watching Wade teaching their son William to ride his first pony. Her hand rested on her walking stick, the same one Wade had carved for her during those difficult days in Montana. Though she still needed it on most days, she had learned to move through life with a grace that belied her disability. The sound of William's delighted laughter filled the air as Wade led the pony in a circle. Seeing them together, her husband and son, the family she'd never dared hope for, filled Sophia's heart to overflowing. "Mama, watch me," William called, his small face alight with joy. "I see you, my brave boy," she called back. "You're doing wonderfully." Wade looked up, his eyes finding hers across the yard. His smile held all the love and promise that had sustained them through their journey, a journey that had begun with pain, but had led to this perfect moment of happiness. Some wounds never fully healed, Sophia knew, but with love, even the deepest injuries could mend into something beautiful and strong. Wade had taught her that, and together they would go on teaching that lesson to their son and to all the children who would follow. In this life they had built together on the frontier, they had found not just survival, but true healing, the kind that transformed broken pieces into something whole and new.